So what's up, everybody? I want to talk about this Anthony Joshua Andy Ruiz rematch. So what I've been hearing all the time from so-called like boxing experts and people that are involved with boxing and stuff like that is that a lot of people think that Andy Ruiz is gonna win again, and he's gonna knock out Anthony Joshua again because Anthony Joshua has this in the back of his mind. Plus, Anthony Joshua is overrated. He's not that good of a fighter. Blah blah blah. I heard that from a lot of people. I actually almost like all the trainers and all the boxers that they interviewed, or at least the interviews that I saw on YouTube went in that direction, And I have to say, I disagree with this wholeheartedly. I don't think this is true at all. I mean, I think that, there were two major factors there that led to the result of the first fight. And that's the only, hint that we have is the first fight. So what happened in the first fight? What are these two factors that led to the result that we saw in the first fight? The first one being Anthony Joshua actually was preparing for somebody else. Anthony Joshua was preparing for Gerald Miller, who, if you know anything about boxing, is levels below Andy Ruiz. He's levels below Andy Ruiz, Yeah, he's undefeated, this and that, but he never fought anybody, and he can't punch, and he's just not that good of a fighter. And they were preparing to come in there heavy, walk through this guy, and put him on his ass and knock him out, and go home early. That was the plan. That guy should not have been there with him. He was convinced of this, and that was the whole game plan. And when they changed to Andy Ruiz, they didn't really make the effort to study him, and to prepare for him. So they did not prepare for that type of style. The hand speed, you know, just Andy Ruiz style, that short, stocky guy with a lot of speed, a lot of stamina for his size, and they were just not prepared for him. They just went through the motions with the training camp, and but did not really train for that particular style. That was one thing, and of course combine that with the fact that Andy Ruiz is pretty good himself, and uh, if you're not prepared for him, you're gonna be in there for a long night, and that goes for all other heavyweights. Any heavyweight who's not prepared for that style against Andy Ruiz is gonna have a hard night. Anyone. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, and it was very clear to me. It was very clear to me. I don't know why people don't really mention that. It's probably because they don't really study the sport, or at least look at all the interviews and the build up to the fights, right? Because if you have watched the build up to the first fight, just listen to Anthony Joshua's interviews, just listen to him, if you've been following his career and you know how he talks and you know how he acts, and watch him before that fight. He was just very erratic. He was not coherent. He did not sound right one bit to me. And I wrote comments everywhere about this. I was like, this guy, something's wrong with this guy. I don't know what it is. And from what we've seen in the fight, the first punch, the very first punch he got hit with, the fight was over basically. He got buzzed. He was out of the fight, and these are all indications to me that this guy that had a concussion, and that the rumors are true that this guy had a concussion. That his dad or whatever in his camp didn't want him in there fighting, and they were like, "Hey, Andy, we should be a walk in the park," And Anthony Joshua probably knew that, and when he had the chance, when he put Andy down, he was like, okay, I'm not gonna risk it. I'm just gonna finish him now. Which, inadvertently, he was taking a huge risk trying to knock him out because Andy was not done, and he got himself knocked out like that. These are extraordinary circumstances here we're talking about. You know, these are things that doesn't happen every fight. You know, and these are things that are not gonna happen in the rematch. And in the rematch, so these two things are out of the window. Josh was not be prepared for the style. That's out. he's gonna be prepared for Andy Ruiz style, and we already see it from the way he looks. That's the biggest indicator that we have. This guy has lost weight. This guy is planning on getting in there and being slick and using his jab, and that's what he was doing well in the first 2 rounds or in the first 3 rounds of the fight when he was using the jab and trying to keep his distance and not being greedy with his punches. He was dominating the fight actually quite easily. So that's not a problem for Anthony Joshua anymore. And him being concussed, I know that his trainer is gonna be very careful this time with the sparring and when to cut off the sparring and what kind of sparring partners he's putting in there. He's putting him there with the cruiserweight Andy Tabiti just to deal with the speed. He's a very fast guy to deal with the speed, but he's a cruiserweight, so he's not. I don't think he can really like concuss, Anthony Joshua with 18-ounce gloves. I don't think that's gonna happen. So I think they're being very careful this time, so that Anthony Joshua is gonna get in there 100%. His brain is not gonna be concussed, and he's gonna be slim to be able to box and move and execute his game plan against a guy that's that much shorter than him. And the third thing that I have noticed, the third thing, which is also very relevant, people can't sleep on that, um, is when you listen to the interviews of Andy Ruiz in the build-up to this fight. I mean, I watched a little bit of him before the first fight, but he was very like, reserved. He didn't say much. He was like, just get me in there. Whereas this time, when people talk to him and they're doing this thing on YouTube where it's like a 24/7 thingy, like a day in the life of a fighter. They have like 3 episodes of this. I was just watching that. I think it was on the Zone or something, but it's on YouTube also. And they show clips of his training, and he does not look like he's training. He does not look like he's somebody that's in a training camp. Mentally, just look at his face. Look at the look on his face. He does not look like a guy that's training for a championship fight. And also, like, it's just light work. Like when they show him training, they hit the mitts a couple of times, they flash a couple of combinations, and that's it. I'm not seeing any grind whatsoever from Andy Ruiz, and I don't feel it from the way he talks, and from the way his trainer talks. They're trying to keep a poker face, but I don't see, you know, that warrior spirit in him for some reason. I don't know. I think Andy is not training for this fight, and that's just the feeling I have. I can't point at some second in the video and tell you, hey, look at this. That's the ultimate proof that he's not training. I can't do that. But collectively, from the things that I've seen, I'm getting the impression. The impressions that I get when it comes to boxing are normally right. Most of the time they're right. They're pretty damn accurate, if you ask me. But let's get past that. I don't think Andy Ruiz is training for this fight. I don't think he has the same hunger, the same warrior spirit that he has had for the first fight. And I think that this is actually gonna be a relatively comfortable Anthony Joshua win. I wouldn't even be surprised if he stops Andy Ruiz late in the fight or in the second half of the fight. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And if I'm a betting man, I'm putting my money on Anthony Joshua hands down. You know, we've seen that a lot before. Fighters win an upset the first fight, but in the rematch or in the following fight, they're not the same. And the hunger is not there. And with Andy Ruiz, like people, or he'd be like, I achieved my dreams. I put my family in a different position, and I'm fighting for that. Well, even if he lost that, first of all, he's making a ton of money regardless, win, lose, or draw this time. He's making a shitload of money regardless as a champion. He's making a lot of money. I don't know what, 10, 20 million? I don't know, but that's a lot of money. That sets you up for life. You don't need to keep winning for this. And even if he lost the fight, there are still fights out there on the horizon. People, Deontay Wilder will still fight him. If he just puts on a good effort, you know, Deontay Wilder is on his side. On the PBC side. That fight is easy to make if Deontay Wilder beats Tyson Fury, which is a big ask. But if that happens, that's gonna be like that opponent in common, you know that thing with like for example like Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and Juan Manuel Marquez, for example, or these two and Shane Mosley or Miguel Cotto, that one common opponent that they've been giving us for like 5 years until they finally gave us the fight, you know. Andy Ruiz gonna be one of these guys, you know. He because of the win that he has the first time, and if he gives just a good effort this time, puts him in a position to still make a lot of money in the sport. So the hunger that he has, especially when you look at a guy that's a professional fighter and he looks like this and he has all these weight issues and stuff, you see that you know this guy's mentality. It was just a coincidence. It was just the right amount of motivation at the right time against the right guy that led to all of this that we're talking about now. You know, he's not a guy that's in there day in and day out grinding. You know, so I don't think he has the mental capacity to do that. You know, otherwise, in my very humble opinion, I'm not trying to bash him, but if you're doing that and if you live in the life of a fighter, you know, the way Anthony Joshua is right now, you won't look like that. You would never look like that. You're not gonna come into the weigh-in. I just watched the weigh-in. You're not gonna weigh 20 pounds more than the than the first fight. 283, 283. You know, I mean, there's not a lot really to be said here. I mean, that weight issues. I wanted to keep that in the end because of the other factors. I didn't want this to overshadow the whole analysis that I gave. But this weight, that's a dead giveaway. That's a dead giveaway. You know, how is he gonna be able to fight 12 rounds? He's 6'1", weighing 290 or 285 pounds. He's gonna be 290 pounds tomorrow. You know, how is that even possible? How is this person not going to gas out tomorrow after 4 rounds? That's what I'm asking myself, and I don't think it's gonna happen. You know, even with all the talent in the world, you know, I've seen that with James Toney before. You know, he didn't have the work ethic late in his career, and you know he just relied on his talent, and he didn't train, and he went up, he ballooned in weight, just ballooned in weight, and he lost, and he started getting his ass kicked. You know, and it's not gonna happen to you that often in that sport that you're gonna catch the heavyweight champion of the world slipping like Andy Ruiz caught Anthony Joshua slipping the first fight. With you, you know, being in a decent shape, if you're never in shape, you know, these coincidences, these stars are not lining up like this all the time. That doesn't happen. So, in conclusion, Anthony Joshua is expected to win. He should win that fight quite easily. And I can't wait. All right, guys. Thanks.